Well, let's get started then. Limited time, so much to say. All right, so this is the talk. If you're not here to learn about IRC, then you're in the wrong place, I'm sorry. Super fast introduction, because you're not here to learn about me, are you? I am VM Brasseur. We're all friends here. You can call me Vicky. If you need to contact me for any reason, here's my Twitter, my IRC nick, that is both on irc.perl.org and on Freenode, and my email address. I'm currently a senior software engineering manager at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. I work in service to a team which is 100% dedicated to upstream open source development. That's all we do, is upstream open source. I also work with somebody whom many of you know and love. Her name is Allison Randall. So I want to take a moment to thank Hewlett-Packard Enterprise for loving open source and for allowing me to be here today. All right, so as I said, I am a manager, so I'm going to start by doing something we in management call setting up expectations. Okay, so the content of this talk springs from a survey I conducted. Over 200 people participated in this survey, and they gave me their suggestions of what they thought would be good for introductory IRC. The target audience for this talk, by the way, is people who are not very familiar with IRC. So if you know IRC pretty well, then you're probably going to be bored. So what am I going to cover? First of all, what even is an IRC? Some of the fundamental concepts of IRC, and then I will build upon that to give you some commands to get you started, and then IRC etiquette, and a super fast wrap-up. What I am not going to cover, and what a lot of people ask about, but we are outside of the scope of this particular talk, is logging, how to log your conversations on IRC, persistence, how to stay on IRC all the time, bots, so out of scope, and customizations, for instance, to your IRC client or something like that. I'm going to throw a whole lot of commands at you at a certain point in this talk. Lots of people like to snap photos as a part of, just note-taking of this sort of stuff. You don't have to do that. These slides are already available on Internet Archive. They will display appropriately once the archive gets something fixed, but the file is there already. There's a PDF you can download and have a look, so you don't have to go snapping photos of anything except for this one. And if you don't snap a photo of this one now, don't worry. I will show you this URL later. One final point before I get to the content. Please save all your questions for the end. I'm easily distracted, so we'll just save that for the end and batch them. So let's get started. What even is an IRC? IRC stands for Internet Relay Chat. This is one of the earliest real-time chat systems ever. It was invented by this man, Jarkko O, whose name I will not slaughter. Doesn't he look like a nice fellow? Right? So Jarkko, he was a student in Finland. And he was tasked with kind of duplicating some BBS and forum functionality. He started by creating a real-time chat system, and then it was so cool that he just dropped the rest of it and only focused on the real-time chat. He did this in 1987. So, Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web in 1988. So IRC has been around longer than the web. He took his fun new toy and he made it freely available to everyone who wanted it. And it was often passed around on these funny little things that look a lot like a save icon. It therefore spread all over the world. And we have him to thank. And if I ever meet him, I will buy him a beer or a beverage of his choice because I love IRC and I'm very grateful to Jarkko for this. So thank you, IRC. Or thank you, Jarkko, for IRC. Most IRC usage hit its peak right around 2004 or 5, and that was primarily driven by gamers at that time. QuakeNet was one of the largest IRC networks for the longest time. Just millions and millions of people used to use IRC. It's kind of been on the wane since then. But the Freenode IRC network, which is what this is for, the Freenode IRC network supports hundreds of free and open source software projects. It's the exception to the rule. It has grown almost consistently throughout its entire life. Right now, you can see here at the end, it's kind of tapered off a bit and leveled out. We're around at a max of 98.9, so nearly 99,000 users. Now it's around 80,000 and holding steady at the moment. It has over 50,000 channels. It's really big. Pay attention to that notification there. You don't get to be the venerable age of what have you, I'm not going to do math right now, without getting a bit of a reputation. And often reputations are negative. There are a lot of criticisms about IRC. People say it is arcane and opaque to learn. They say it's not logged by default, and so therefore it's bad. You don't get your scroll back, you don't see what happened automatically. You have to do some stuff for that. You don't have a persistent presence by default, so if somebody sends you a message and you're not online, you won't see it, and they see this as a very bad thing. But primarily they say it's not shiny. And this is a problem for a lot of people. I prefer to focus on the benefits of IRC. It is ubiquitous, and it is open to anyone with an internet connection. If you have a device which can connect to the internet, odds are remarkably good that some industrious nerd has created an IRC client for it. So you can probably connect to IRC from anywhere on almost any device in the world. It's very, very, very lightweight. Very low bandwidth requirements for IRC. So if you do have a small underpowered machine, you can still use IRC, and you can't use a lot of other chat systems because of it, because of their heavyweightness. It is loggable. You can do this, and you can do some really great things with these logs. My team primarily works on the OpenStack open source project. All public OpenStack channels are logged and put online, so everybody can read them and everyone can participate. It's really great. You can do great things with it. You can also script it via bots and other things, and you can do just phenomenal things with IRC. It's discoverable. And by that I mean you don't have to sign up for a special velvet rope sort of user account. You can just walk in and use IRC. And when you just walk in and use IRC, you can also see all of the channels that are out there. You can see all the people that are there. You can discover what there is to be found on that particular IRC network. It's not a closed sort of walled garden. And because it's not a walled garden, it is free in all senses of the word. The IRC daemon, which runs a lot of IRC network, it's like the server program, it's released on GPL, so you can go and do whatever you want with it, and everyone can use it. And of course, one of the biggest benefits I see of IRC is that it is still the most popular real-time chat system for free and open source collaborators and users. So if you are going to be participating in open source projects, if you're going to be using them, then knowing at least a little bit of IRC is all you need to participate. It's great. Thank you, IRC. That said, there is a bit of an elephant in the room, and that is that at least one of these criticisms of IRC is correct. It is legitimately arcane and opaque to learn. And that's because it was written in 1987, and the documentation was written by people who weren't really focused on, let's say, accessibility. So that's all right. That's why I'm here. I'm here to help. I'm going to start by giving you some of the fundamental concepts of IRC. These are going to be very basic fundamental concepts. I could go into excruciating detail on any of them, but there's no need, because what we want to do is just get you going with IRC and to feel comfortable with it. So all you need to participate in IRC is you need a network, an IRC network. You need a client to connect to that network. You need to pick a nickname, an identity for yourself. Optionally, you can select a channel to participate in, or you could just private message a lot of people. Good job. And finally, you need an internet connection. So we all understand internet connection, so I'm not going to get into that one in any more detail, but I will talk about the others a bit. First of all, I'll start with networks. So it's not going to be a surprise to anyone in this room that a network is a collection of servers. Boom. This could be one server, it could be 1,000 servers, it doesn't matter, but it's a collection of servers. when you connect to an IRC network, you connect to the network. Don't select a specific server. The software will find that for you. It will get the appropriate one for its particular use case and needs and your location. There are a number of IRC networks out there. I'm going to focus particularly on the ones related to free and open source software. We have OFTC. This is the open and free technology community. If you are participating in anything related to Debian, Tor, Ceph, any number of other projects, they're on OFTC. Mozilla runs its own IRC network. This is not only all of the usual suspects as far as Mozilla projects, but it's also Rust. So if you're learning Rust, go to Mozilla. We have our own IRC network, irc.perl.org. And then obviously Freenode, which I've already mentioned, and that lovely graph of growth. So once you select a network that you wish to connect, you need something to do that, and that would be your client. So IRC clients, we've been doing this since 1987. Right? There are so many client options out there, so feel free to shop around. It is a very personal choice. So what I use may not work for you, what Chris uses may not work for you, but it's a very personal choice. So based upon the results of that survey I did, just to get you started to try and find your first IRC client, the most popular ones by desktop platform. For Windows, it's MIRC. Almost every single Windows user who submitted that survey uses MIRC. If you're a Linux user, then IRC or WeChat. And typically, Linux users, because we seem to be a bit more advanced or we're just, I don't know, like the pain, we do these via a screen or TMUX session. For OS X, yay Apple. For OS X, the most popular one is textual. Now, I used to use textual, but when I started at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise soon afterward, I switched my IRC client for my own particular needs, and the one I use is IRC Cloud. This is not just a client, but it's a full service for which you pay. It is $5 a month, and it's worth every bloody cent. It has its own clients for web, Android, iOS, and every single desktop via an Electron app. So you can use it for everything. It solves a lot of those problems and those criticisms. It gives you scroll back all the time. It gives you online persistence. It has integration with a lot of other services such as Twitter. It has its own paste bin. I mean, it's really great. I love it so much. It is also dead easy to use. So therefore, it's great for new people. You don't have to think about a lot of stuff. But I'm not a new IRC user. And I use this. It's really great. And I particularly use it because you see all these clients here. Your conversations seamlessly get handed off between all of them. And as I mentioned, my team does work on OpenStack. Therefore, I use IRC for my job. And my team needs to be able to contact me whenever and wherever I am. They can do this now, and I don't get dropped messages. It's fabulous. I love IRC Cloud. And I will tell you that I don't get a kickback for this. I just really do think it's a good tool and a good service, and it is particularly good for new people. So you've got your client, whichever one you've chosen and whichever one you prefer. Now you need an identity, and that would be your nickname. In almost all of the documentation, this will be called a nick. It's not usually spelled out. So if you see Nicks, it's not some person whose name is Nick. This is your IRC identity. IRC is fully text-based, so your name is who you are online. This is you in IRC. This is like your IRC body. Any number, or you can use any valid characters for this, and there are even some alphanumeric, and you've got some little squiggly bits. According to the IRC RFC, and of course there's one of those, the max number of characters for your name is 9, but that's not actually true. It seems to vary by network. For instance, on Freenode, it's 16. I didn't get the chance to look at how for the maximum for irc.perl.org, but Really, it's not 9. You can have a longer name than that. So you pick your nickname. And then there are channels. Channels are a pretty fundamental thing, and it's easy to understand because we're all familiar with this concept now. Channels are just a chat room. If you're not in the channel, then you can't see or participate in what's going on in that channel. That's it. All right, so channel names typically start with a hash or a hash. There are some other ways to start a channel name, but you're never going to see them because you're not an admin. So hash or hash. This is a convention that they start with a hash or a hash. IRC Perl.org channels typically do not use hash. They only have a single hash. So the convention is that if it starts with a single hash, it's a more professional or official channel. So for my team, for instance, hash OpenStack-dev. This is an official channel of OpenStack. And that is going to be logged for OpenStack. They have their own particular loggers, and they put all those logs online. If it's a hash, say it's hash OpenStack-social. That's where the OpenStack community gets together to talk about movies and cocktails and things like that. It's a much more casual sort of channel, but this is not enforced anywhere. Hash versus hash. It's just a convention. But it is something that people assume you know. Now you do. Channels can be hidden or private or invite only, but they're typically not. By default, anyone can join any channel at any time. Some examples of channels on irc.perl.org. You have hash YAPC. If you haven't joined the hash YAPC channel yet, please do. We've been having wonderful conversations there all week. Hash Perl Help, which does exactly what it says on the tin. That's where you can go to ask for assistance with Perl. And to plug my own Perl Mongers group, Portland Represent, we have hash pdx.pm. If you're a member of a Perl Mongers group, odds are pretty good it'll have some sort of IRC presence on irc.perl.org. So, I need coffee. These are the foundations upon which all of IRC are based. Now that we know these things, we can get into some commands so you can actually get up and running and be as useful at IRC as everyone. So, generally speaking for IRC commands, they start with a slash, and they often accept or require at least one argument. Now, I am going to show you a lot of examples of commands going forward so you can see these, how they work. Again, you don't have to go scrolling everything down because the slides are already available for you. So you can just use those as your notes if you want. So first of all, you've picked your nickname. My slides did wonky things, so. Okay, so you've picked your nickname. You should register it because IRC is kind of free and open. If you don't register your nickname, then somebody, if you're not using it, can use it instead. And as I said, this is your body on IRC. So if your body walks into a channel and it's filled with someone else's mind, it can be very confusing for people who are used to you being in that body. So if you register your nick, that won't happen. In order to do that, you use nickserve. And nickserve is a nickname management service that runs on almost every single IRC network. So to do it, you run this command. You send a private message to nickserve with the register keyword. You give it a password and your email address. Notice you're not entering your nick here. That's because you've already connected to the network with a nick. So you have to be using the nick that you want to register. And so you give them this information. This email address for some networks is used to confirm that you actually do want to register that nick. So a confirmation email. And otherwise, it's not used at all unless you happen to have forgotten your password and you need to get an admin to mail you. It's not used, it's not shown anywhere. So don't worry about that. Do give a real email address for this. So here's, you can't see the example, but it is available in this slide, so that's why it's here. But my cat, Percy, registered using a password which was not password. And here's what he sees after he does this. All these examples are based on Freenode because I didn't want to screw with my irc.perl.org setup. And Freenode's pretty easy because it has a web interface that you don't have to screw with the rest of your setup. So Percy now has a registered nick. He is registered as Percy. Go Percy. All right, so now that he's registered, he goes away and he comes back. He needs to log in. He needs to identify. That's what logging in is known as on IRC. It's identify. So to sign in, this is the command. This is not required. You don't have to identify on IRC. You can just use your nick. It's okay. That's fine. But if you identify, there are certain things benefits that can give you. It's pretty more advanced stuff, so I'm not going to get into them. But really, it's just generally a good idea. Again, to do it, you send another message to nickserv, a private message to the nickserv with the keyword identify. Give it the nick you want to use and then the password you set. Here's what happens with Percy. And Freenode says, yes, you are now identified for Percy. What a smart little kitty. All right, so this is the nickname that you chose, but you don't always have to use it. You can change your name at any time on IRC to anything you want, as long as it's not already registered or used. That's quite easy to do. But you should remember that this takes effect network-wide, not just on that channel. So if you're changing your name to something snarky because you want to be funny to a friend on a channel, and say you happen to use IRC professionally, as some of us do, everyone will see that. So don't change your name to asshat and then go talking to your VP, because he's going to see that. I actually have not done that. That was not the voice of experience. So it does take effect network-wide. All you have to do is send the command /nick with your new name, and to switch back to your old nick, just /nick again. You can keep /nicking all you want. Here's Percy changing his name to Percy Cat. And this, when you change your name, often people will see it in the channels. They can turn off that, seeing that, but often they'll see that. Here's him changing his name back. And let's say he wants to pretend to be Nigel, my other cat. But Nigel is smarter than Percy, and so he's already registered his nick. That nickname is already in use. So that's how that happens. So you're on the network. You've got your name, but you're not really there to get a name. You're there to talk to people. So how do you get into a channel? It couldn't be easier. It's so easy. I didn't even give you an example. And that's just /join. And then you give the name of the channel. The name of the channel includes the hash and the hash. That is part of the name. If you try and join a channel without putting the hash or hash, you're not going to get in. This can be slightly confusing. I will cover this in another slide, but nicks can sometimes have little characters in front of them. You should not use those when talking to people, but you do use the hash and the hash in front of a channel name. So you join that. If you hash join something and, if you hash join something and let's say you fat finger it and you typo and that channel doesn't actually exist, it does now. IRC will automatically create any channel that you want. If it doesn't already exist, you can just join it. It's pretty cool. IRC channels are cheap. You can join one and get your stuff done and then leave. And so you can have very special purpose channels. Say you just want to have a talk about one specific thing. You can name your channel one specific thing and then tell everyone to join it, have that conversation, then you leave. Then you don't have to take up all that space in another channel and add a lot of noise. So for instance, if you wanted to join hash Yapsy and you do, this is the command you pass. Super easy. Boom. But you do have to be on the irc.perl.org network first. So you've done your stuff. You've had that little special conversation with somebody and hashed out whatever it was you needed on a bug or something. You need to leave the channel. You don't need to leave the channel, but you kind of want to leave the channel. That couldn't be easier either. /leave with the channel name. You can run this command from any channel and you will leave the named channel there. But if you're in that channel, you can just do /leave and then you'll be gone. That's it. So what happens after this depends upon your client's implementation. Some clients will remove that channel from your channel listing so you don't see it. You can be in as many channels as you want, by the way. Knock yourself out. So some clients will. Other clients, such as IRC Cloud, just marks it as kind of an inactive channel and it leaves it in your list. So that's really an implementation detail. All right, you're in a channel, but what are you going to do there? You're not there just to sit around and listen, although you should. That's a different slide. You want to say something. That's super easy. Just type something that's not a command. Hit enter. Now you're talking. If you want to type a command as the very first thing of your message, there's a way to do that. You can use the /say command. So rare, almost nobody does it. There's no need to do it. You should just type, right? But if you do have to say a command as your first thing, then you can use /say. Think of it as escaping that command. Really, a space before the command also escapes that command. So here's Percy. He's a cat. He doesn't know how to use IRC because, well, he's a cat. We're lucky he can type. And here's him using /say. He types this and it just looks like regular saying is all. So you don't have to use /say, please don't really. But I did want you to know it's an option. To be honest, I learned about this one myself when I was writing up this talk. I was like, really? Okay. So you're not limited to just saying things. You can also do things, right? Just like your nick is your body, you can also take actions in channels and in conversations with people. And to do that, you send actions using the me command. Here's Percy, /me waves to the audience, and this is what it looks like in the IRC channel. So it looks like Percy is waving to you. Not that he waves, he's a cat, right? So this is what it shows in the channel. You can also use me in private messages. We can have a one-on-one conversation. So when you have a private message with somebody, it can be logged by one or both parties. No one else can see it while it's happening, but it can be logged. So keep that in mind. This is not necessarily an ephemeral conversation, nor should you assume any of the conversations on IRC are necessarily ephemeral, because people can log them on their own. Also, before you send anybody a private message, please ask for permission first. Go in channel and say, hey, Vicky, I have a question. Can I PM you? Odds are really good I'm going to say yes. If you don't ask, then I'm going to get really annoyed if I start getting random PMs from people I don't know. So do ask. It's just common courtesy on IRC. So to do that, /message and then somebody's nickname. On some IRC networks, rather than /message, you do /query. And there's reasons for that that I won't get into because they're too advanced. But /message typically will do it. So here's Percy. He's messaging me because he asked permission. Actually, I know Percy already, so he's allowed. And then he waves to me. And I say, who's a good kitty? And he's like, oh, me, isn't it? And I was like, yes, it's you. Shut up. So yeah, this is a private message between Percy and me. So let's assume Percy had no bloody clue who I am. And frankly, he's a cat. He forgets who I am. So he needs to find that out. You can use the /who and the /whois commands to return more information about a person. But that's limited to what they want to share. They don't have to give you information. They don't have to even give you real information. So while you can use this, it isn't always as useful as you would expect. For me, for instance, here's Percy doing a who is for me. Here it lists all the channels I'm in that Percy also is in. It's not all the channels I'm in because this would be a really long list. The channels, I do give my real name. That's because my real name is pretty much my IRC nick, so what am I trying to hide, right? So this is the information that you would get from me on Freenode. Other people, you might get other stuff. Very frequently, people do not give real names. So you've gotten tired. You need to go pee. You have to take a call. You have to pick the kids up from school. You don't have to mark yourself away, but you can set an away status if you want. And this is just something that you can do to let people know that you're not going to be answering very quickly. So you can set your status, and that's easy enough. Just type /away. Optionally, you can tell them why you're away by typing /away and then putting a message after it, like /away back at 2200 UTC. You can type that and let people know that, but you don't have to. Eventually, because IRC is awesome, you come back to unset your away status. Just type /away again. On some networks, you can type /back. On some clients, it supports /back instead of having to do /away, but they both work. So that's how you set your away status and then unset it. Again, this is optional. You don't have to do this, but if you want, great. So let's get back to those symbols I was talking about before. There are some symbols before some people's nicknames. And when I first started IRC years and years and years ago, I had no idea what they were, and it was slightly confusing. I knew they must mean something. Well, there's two that you're going to see most often. Primarily, you'll see this one. And that is an @ symbol in front of somebody's name. That means they're an operator. They have authority in that channel, specific to that channel. Another one you will see is voiced. This is not used very often. It is possible to set some channels so only people who have a voice are allowed to speak. And it doesn't happen very often, but if you need support on, say, Freenode, the Freenode support network or channel does this. You have to be voiced in order to ask you a question. There's a bot that will voice you. And when you are voiced or someone else is voiced, you'll see a little plus before them. But primarily the one you want to know is @. These are the operators. These are the people you go to if you have a problem. They can help you in the channel. So really, honest to God, that's all you need to learn how to use, mechanically speaking, IRC. Those are all the commands you need. That is literally like 98% of the commands I ever use. There's also a /help, so you can do that as well. I don't know why I keep forgetting to put it in the slides, but so that's just, you know, how the things to type to do the things. But there's also how to behave. Each and every IRC channel has its own particular special snowflake culture. Pay attention to that. Don't just assume all channels are the same. They're not. That said, they do share several characteristics. There are certain bits of etiquette that you should follow in every single channel. First of all, some people say IRC is a cesspit. Those people are wrong. Only certain channels on IRC are a cesspit. In general, shut up, you. See, that was me being in a welcoming place full of helpful people yelling at Gene Hack. Yeah, IRC in general, in particular with open source projects, is full of helpful people. But as with any community, please pay attention to the culture and the mores of each particular channel, because consider each channel to be its own community. Tolerance breeds jerks. Tolerance of jerks breeds more jerks. We don't need more jerks. If you are treated badly, please speak with an operator and see whether there is anything they can do about it. They can potentially coach that person into better behavior. If they're a real asshole, they can kick them and ban them from the channel. And if it's really, really bad, you can find a network operator and they can ban them from the entire network. So yeah, in case of jerks, please report it. This prevents IRC from ever becoming a cesspit. Also, IRC is both real-time and asynchronous. I am on IRC right this moment, but I'm not answering questions, right? So if you do have a question, stick around. Don't just show up, wait for 5 minutes, say, oh, they're ignoring me, and then leave. People have lives. They'll get back to you. You may have to wait up to a day to get an answer. But they will get back to you. Other times they'll just be there and immediately answer you. So, but do be patient. So that's generally speaking what you should do in every single channel. There are also some things to keep in mind as far as channel culture for each channel. First of all, always read the topic. When you join a channel, you will be presented with a topic, and it will tell you what that channel is all about. Sometimes it will include some links. You should read those links to learn more about what they discuss in this channel and how they behave and what they expect. If you don't see a topic when you join your network, or if it scrolls off your screen on your client or something, you can type /topic and you can get that. So it's not gone forever. Once you do show up to a network, or to a channel, and you read the topic and you understand everything is there, Lurk there. Sit and listen. See how they interact. See what they expect. See whether they are an active channel or whether you will have to wait longer for your answer. So just lurk for a while to get a sense of it before you start speaking. If you're in a channel, you're probably there to talk to people, in which case you will need to have some kind of etiquette tips as far as interactions. So if you come into a channel where I am and you mention my name, that will send me a notification. And it's called a ping. You can ping someone. If you ping someone but don't add anything else after their name, it's called a naked ping. And to be honest, these don't bother me a ton most of the time. I didn't realize how much it does bother people. This is a huge pet peeve for a lot of people in the IRC world. So don't naked ping someone. Also, when you mention them, a lot of IRC clients support tab completion. So you don't have to learn how to type my name. No one should have to do that. No, you can just type VMB and hit tab and it will get you me. So yeah, no naked pings. This, however, is the biggest one. Almost everybody has this peeve. If you have a question, just ask it. You do not need permission to ask a question. Or, as everybody will tell you on IRC, don't ask to ask, just ask. If you're in the Moose channel, you walk in there and the first thing you say is, hey, can I ask a question about Moose? Everyone's going to be like, why the fuck are you here if you don't want to talk about Moose? So don't ask to ask, just ask your question about Moose. Don't ask for permission to do so. By being in the channel, you have permission to ask questions. Large text dumps, this is rude. It really ruins everybody's scroll back. Some clients don't even allow you to do it. IRC Cloud has spoiled me because if I put a large text dump in there, it automatically gives me a paste bin, which is brilliant. And then it puts a link to my large text dump there. But if you do have a large text dump, say a big error log or a build log or something like that, put it in a paste bin, put it in a gist, do something like that and put a link in there instead of the big dump, because otherwise people are going to get really cranky. Other things that make them cranky. Rather than using /away, you change your nickname to say Brasseur away. You know what I've just done? Every single private message I had going to Brasseur just got disconnected because I'm no longer Brasseur. I'm in a different body. People hate this. It makes communication more difficult. Use /away if you must, but don't change your nick to show you're away. So once you're there and you're participating and you're starting to interact, there are some things you should remember as far as your writing style. First of all, we're all used to using many different kinds of chat. Some of them, to ping someone, you put an @ in front of their username. You don't do that on IRC. You don't. Even if I am an operator and I have an @ in front of my name, please don't use it. It's not needed, and it was recently pointed out to me, thank you, Chris, that it can actually screw up some clients. Some of the older clients will not notify people appropriately if you have an @ in front of their name. So just don't do it. Also, some IRCers will get really super defensive, and they will do things like not Slack, or go back to HipChat, or crap like that. So, yeah, so don't give them a chance to get cranky at you. Also, while there is a character limit per message on IRC, it really doesn't matter because all you're going to be doing is typing a sentence, hitting enter, typing a sentence, hitting enter. So spell things out. If you use text speak, people get cranky. So please just write out complete words as sentences. This one is obvious, and yet somehow keep having to remind people, please don't shout in the channel. And if you do, have a good reason. I mean, sometimes we all need to get a good shout out, right? So use it sparingly, but don't, accidentally lean on your caps lock forever. Also, IRC does support ANSI colors. And the first time everybody finds this out, it's like you handed them a box of 96 crayons. That's why a lot of clients have an option now to strip out the ANSI color codes. So even if you do that, some people won't see it. Other people will. It pisses them off. Don't piss them off. Don't use ANSI color. So super fast wrap up. That's really all I have as far as etiquette. Really simple, mostly logical, but you now have everything you need to successfully IRC. That's all there is to it. So that wrap up, I'm going to start with some gratitude. As I said, I did run this survey, and a number of people who took the survey agreed to be publicly thanked. And here's my survey respondents, the ones who agreed to that. Some of them are Twitter handles, some of them are IRC nicks, all of them are wonderful. I'm very grateful to all of these people, and also to the ones who did not wish to be publicly recognized, but thank you. You probably recognize a few names on there too. Thank you, Sungo. More gratitude to Peregrine. Thank you, Chris. Oh, come on, like I could pass up that opportunity. Pardon? It's on video. His daughter calls him a pretty pony. She's wonderful. You should meet her someday. So Chris helped out a lot when I gave this talk the first time at Southeast Linux Fest. He answered some more advanced questions. He is one of the admins of the irc.perl.org network. So if you have any advanced questions, he can help. And if they come up in the Q&A, then he will be able to help us with that. He also, after that, reviewed the slides and gave me some tips and provided a little more feedback, which I've integrated into this version. So thank you, Chris. You are a pretty pony. And finally, I have some image credits for all of the images you've seen in here, except for, of course, the HPE logo. But so the Noun project is a really cool thing. You can find tiny little images of so many cool things out there. It's also, most of them are Creative Commons, and the artists can get paid. So it's a really cool project. Image of Jarkko from this Swedish newspaper. And then the Freenode stats are from irc.netsplit.de. And if you want to learn more about IRC, this is a great resource for you. It's got all sorts of amazing stats and channel lists and more IRC networks to join and lots of cool stuff. So finally, here is that URL again. Once something gets fixed on the archive side and it finishes deriving my file, there will be an evaluation link there. So as I mentioned, I did do this talk before. I will do it again. I do all of my talks multiple times. I need your feedback. This is how I improve. I need to hear from you. Did I do well? And how can I get better? So once this is done, there will be an evaluation link there, and I really would be very grateful if you could give me feedback. So that's all the content I have. I will leave this slide up so you can see the URL, which actually does work this time, unlike my talk on Monday. And now we have about 7 minutes for Q&A. Yes, sir. What's your name?
Greg.
Greg. Hi, Greg.
Hi. When somebody private messages you, do you have to accept the message, or is it just that's it?
Oh. That's a very good question. If somebody private messages you, do you have to accept it? It just shows up. So at least in every client I've seen, I wouldn't be surprised if there is some client somewhere that has built in, do you want to accept this call, sort of thing. But I've never seen it. It shows up. You can ignore it. Just, you know, you don't have to write back to them. You can also, there are commands to allow you to ignore entire people. So if there's some particular nick who keeps getting under your skin, you can just /ignore them. So then they're private messages, you never see them anyway. No. No, they don't. Okay, more questions. Yes, sir, what's your name?
Brian.
Hi, Brian.
Hi. If you /join and it creates a new channel, are you then the channel head?
Oh. Yes, actually, so the question is, if you /join and create a new channel, are you the admin? Yes and no. You won't have a little oper symbol on you. You won't officially be an operator. You can register that channel, and then you are the founder of that channel, and you're an operator. But by default, no. I mean, anyone can become an operator in that channel, sort of, kind of. They could register it and become an operator. Does it get cleaned up? It just goes away. Yeah. Chris,
Channel if no one's in it.
pardon?
A channel isn't a channel.
A channel isn't a channel. Yeah, if a channel falls in the woods and there's nobody there to see it. Chris, do you have a comment?
On IRC.Perl.org, if you join an empty channel, you do get an operator bit. The first person
Oh.
to join gets the operator bit.
Okay.
Which is one of the reasons you want to register your channel if you don't have a lot of people actively in it all the time. Because then somebody else can't just take over the channel.
So for the recording, Chris points out that, and this obviously must be a network setting that you can turn on and off. Services, yeah. On IRC.Perl.org in particular, if you create a channel, you automatically get an operator bit. So if you do that, please register, because otherwise somebody might be able to take the channel away from you should you leave. Yes, more questions? More coughs? Our poor Gene Hack is sick. Yes, sir, what's your name?
Hi, my name is Alex.
Hi, Alex.
I just connected and I asked a question and I got a lot of responses just now. I noticed that some of the responses is prefixed with my name and a colon, and others are not. Can you just again explain the distinction?
So Alex joined, I'm guessing IRC.Perl.org.
Yeah.
Which channel?
On the IRC.
Oh, he's on the YAPC channel. So everyone say hi to Alex. What's your nick? A. Gill. Okay, and he asked some questions and got immediate answers. YAPC channel, #YAPC, has been really active this week for some reason, I don't know why. He got a lot of responses. Some are prefixed with his name and a colon, some are not. That's their personal choice. The ones with your name and a colon, those people have gone out of their way to ping you. So you know this response is for you, for your question. Other people assume through context that you will know that they are responding to your question. So that's just personal choice. Whether it has a colon after it depends on their IRC client, and whether it adds a colon after your name. If they autocomplete, IRC Cloud does, textual does not. So it's just them getting your attention, saying, hey, I've got an answer to your question. That's it. More questions? Want to make sure I don't run over time. Really? Everything was that clear? Marvelous. Oh, yes, sir. What's your name?
Nathan.
Hi, Nathan.
So my IT department is very paranoid, and IRC represents a significant security risk to them. So they finally agreed to open up IRC.Perl.org. The problem is when they try to connect to that, the IP address is constantly different. Any suggestions on how to work with that?
You can find one of the network admins and discover the range of IP addresses that they use, and then have those opened up. And then there are some IRC networks, I do not believe IRC.Perl.org is one because I wasn't able to find it, that will have a web interface. So you don't have to deal with any of that, port opening fuckery at all. You can just go to your web browser and use it.
Well, IRC Cloud works.
Oh yeah, that's because you're going through IRC Cloud. Right, and your web browser.
That's a viable alternative.
Yeah, it is a viable alternative, and it gets around your IT department. Not that I condone getting around your IT department. Full disclosure there. Chris, did you have a comment, Ted?
IRC.Perl.org uses Mibit.
Oh, you're on Mibit?
Well, not officially, you have to say other network and...
Okay, so but Mibit is just like IRC Cloud, right? It's just another online service. Yeah. I prefer IRC Cloud, but Mibit is one of those many options. I should run stats on how many different IRC clients people gave me in the survey, but it was considerable. More questions? Anyone? Yes, sir. I am not. Oh, right, I started late. I was waiting for the beer. I didn't get my beer in back. Okay, well, apparently we're out of time. If you have any more questions, there we go. Brilliant, now I got my beer. If you have any more questions, please let me know. All my contact information. Twitter is a great way to get in touch with me, but also, guess what? IRC. So, thank you all.